What's up, ladies and gentlemen? And well, I have a bunch of projects for Unreal Engine 4 where I just experiment with all kinds of random stuff, and this is one of them. Essentially, what I have here is a bunch of trees, some kind of foliage, some kind of like pickup thingies. You can pick some of these things up. That's not important. What is important is that, well, this is an island, and I have a massive, massive water around it. You might be wondering where it is. Well, if we hit play, you will see it. And the wrong screen. There it is. As you can see, I have a massive water around this entire level. Yeah, while recording, my FPS is not the best for this, but usually it's pretty good. And yeah, I have this cool looking water, ocean thingy. It doesn't really do anything. I can't really swim in it at this point. There's nothing underneath it. It's just visual for now. So today I'm going to show you what I did, how I did this, what I used, because you can do this as well, because these assets are free, and this thing uses one of the packs from the marketplace, which is permanently free. So let's try to recreate this. So essentially, let's close this off. I have a blank third-person template over here. All I did was added just a landscape, and also I added water materials. Now, if you go to the marketplace and you look for a water, let's hit enter. Let's see, these are paid ones, but over here we have a free one, which is called water materials. And basically what I did was I just added this to my project. It's been free since 2018. So go ahead, grab that if you like. And real quick, let's have a look what we have in there. So it added this folder for me, water materials. And if we open up the overview of map, let's go into it. And this is interesting. Usually it doesn't give any errors. Maybe I've messed something up. Anyway, it has, as you can see, we have waterfalls with some particles that are splashing the water. We have the rivers over here. We have these ponds. We have, what is this, lake, we have a river, and we have a ocean, and we are going to be using this one. So essentially what this is just a bunch of tiles. So it's 3 by 3, so 9 tiles in total, and it automatically, well, it does automatically detect where the landscape is, and it creates like this white foamy thingy near the shore, and it looks pretty cool, I would like to say. So we're going to use that today. So let's head back into our default map, and let me real quick close this off, because I feel like my FPS will be better if I do it in a single project at a time. So the idea behind that project over there is that I have two water planes that are getting generated. So we have the high quality one, which we can see when we are close near it, and then we have a low quality one, which is getting displayed at the farther edges of the map, where it's not that easy to see, because we don't really need the high detail quality for those pieces that are really, really far away. So let's start this off. So the first thing that we need to do is create a couple of materials. So we have already a bunch of materials. We have the ocean material. This is the one that I'm going to be using, the ocean cheaper one. And we need some other ones as well that would allow us to basically use the LOD system to have a lower quality water at a further distance, and also so that we can draw like a static water which is not actually moving at a very, very high distance. So what I'm going to be doing is instead of opening this, I'm going to be duplicating this, and I have the cheaper, and then I'm gonna have cheaper 2, and then also I'm gonna have the cheapest. So I'm gonna have 3 materials: so ocean cheaper, cheaper 2, and the cheapest one. I'm gonna open up the cheapest, and for the cheapest, what I'm gonna do is pretty much disconnect everything. I'm gonna disconnect the customized UVs, world position offset, normals, and the opacity as well. There we go. So this is going to be the material that we are going to be using for well, let's call this bad water. So the one that's going to be in the distance. So it's not moving. It's what we see it to be here. So that's good. The next one is going to be the cheaper 2. We're going to adjust this one a little bit as well. So we're going to disconnect the customized UVs, we're going to disconnect the normals, we're going to leave the opacity, and we are going to leave the world position offset. The world position offset is the most important thing that we need to leave, because we are going to use this for our good water, and we got to make sure that whenever we swap between the LODs, when we are swapping the materials from the best one to from the cheaper to the cheaper two, we want to make sure that the world offset stays the same. Otherwise, if it doesn't, well, then we will have some issues that we are going to be able to see through the water. There's going to be like these white spots, which are not going to look great at all. There we go. As you can see, this one is still moving, and that's exactly what we needed to do. So we have all of these set up, so there are basically 3 different materials, and to make our life a little bit easier down the road when we are going to adjust these, just right click every single one of these and go ahead and create material instances out of this, and we're going to be using the instances instead of the actual materials. So we are good with that. Now the next thing that I want to do, I want to go ahead and basically tile out my map and create a bunch of water tiles. So to do so, I will need a plane, which I don't have, so I'm going to drag one into the level. I'm going to go ahead and right click this, and I'm going to convert to a static mesh, so I have it in my content browser, and I'm going to call this boring plane. Good. So we have that in here. Now if we bring this in, as you can see, it's very small. It's 1 meter by 1 meter, so 100 by 100 Unreal units. If we go into our water materials and compare it in the meshes with the actual water thing that we are going to use, which is this water thing right here, this one is a lot bigger. Now this one is 1500 by 1500, so 15 meters by 15 meters, and we got to scale this thing up as well. Now I don't want to scale this up in the settings, I'm just too lazy for that. I'm not going to use this plane anywhere else, so what I'm going to actually do instead is open up the mesh itself. I'm going to scroll down till I find the build settings, open this up and change the build scale to be 15 by 15. Hit apply, and now I have a 15 by 15 meter plane. So you can see approximate size 1500 by 1500. So we can save that, and we are good with this. So for now, I'm going to change the default material to use the cheapest, ocean cheapest instance. So this one right here. And let's try to generate a bunch of water around our level. So as you can see right now, this is going to be a very boring water. All it essentially has is just this one little color, and that's pretty much it. You could actually make an even cheaper material as well. You could go ahead and just simply look up a color that would look slightly similar to this if you like, but I have a little bit of opacity, as you can see, so it kind of works, kind of doesn't. It's a weird one. So let's go ahead and let's set it up. First things first, let's go ahead, let's create ourselves an actor blueprint. Actor, let's call this water spawner. Boom. Now inside of here, we're going to do a lot of different interesting things. So the first thing, we need a hierarchy instance mesh thingy, this component right here, and I'm going to call this bad water. So this is going to be the one that's going to look somewhat bad. So for the static mesh, we want to use our boring plane. There we go. Now we don't see any difference because this is an instance. We don't have any instances added. Don't worry about that. This is all fine. That's all that we need to do as of right now. Let's go inside of our event graph. Let's remove these nodes, but I'm going to leave the begin play. Now I'm going to create ourselves a new variable, and this is going to be the start position, and this is going to tell us where to start to generate the water from. So we're going to create like a huge cube near our player essentially. So I'm going to change this into a transform, and what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to set the coordinates of the starting corner essentially. So those are going to be minus 100,000 by minus 100,000. There we go. So minus 100,000 x minus 100,000 y. So that's going to be the corner where it's going to start tiling this water. So what we are going to do next is we're going to grab our bad water, and we're going to go ahead and add instance in the world space. So right away, once the game starts, we're going to add the first tile at the very corner at the minus 100,000 minus 100,000. Then after that, we're going to go ahead and run a for loop, this guy right here, and we're gonna run it a bunch of times. So I'm gonna run this like 10,000 times. And then after this, what we are going to do is go ahead and set our start position so that we can change it. So I'm going to split it, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the start position. I'm going to get it and split it and connect the scale and rotation so that we still keep the same ones. Just in case if you want to modify these, you can go ahead and start experimenting with those ones as well. I'm not going to really do anything with those. Just the location is going to be good enough. So for the location, I'm going to go ahead and do a vector plus vector, and I'm going to start tiling these up. So we placed our first tile down, and now we need to place the next one down. And to find out where we actually need to place it down, we got to look at the size of our water body. Well, a water plane essentially. Now if we browse to the asset and hover over this, as you can see, 1500 by 1500. So that is the amount of units that we need to add. So first we're going to create like a straight line, left to right or right to left, whatever. And we're going to do that in the x-axis, and we're going to type in 1500 then. That's what we're going to do. And once we have done that, we can go ahead, copy these nodes right here. So the add instance to world space. And once we have adjusted the location, we can go ahead and place the next tile down. There we go. So now what we can do is grab our water spawner, simply drag it anywhere in the world, doesn't really matter, and just hit play. Now look around, and in one of the directions, I'm thinking I might have made it a little too far away, so I'm not really able to see that far. Technically there should be a direct line where it got added. So what I'm gonna do is let's bring these values down a little bit just for now. So I'm gonna have these at 1000 by 1000. So I'm gonna add those 2 extra zeros in a second. So my starting position, and there we go. There is the line of water. So it's starting somewhere near me, and then it's going on and proceeding over here. And as you can see, this is how the bad water looks. It does animate near us, but it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really do anything. And that's okay. We don't really need it to do anything. So let's go ahead and let's try to create like a cube so it surrounds us. So I'm going to go ahead and bring these back to 100 by 100,000. And let's start messing with this. So after we have added the second instance, we're going to go ahead and do an if branch check, because we want to check whether we have reached like the square's end, which is going to be 100,000 positive. So I'm going to bring in the position, I'm going to split it, and I'm going to split the location as well. And I'm going to check if the x coordinate, because we are adding to the x coordinate, I'm going to check if that one is bigger or equal to, in this case, 100,000. Here we go. Once we have done this, let's go ahead, let's readjust our location. If that is true, if we have reached the edge, we're going to go ahead and reset our transform to something different. So I'm going to split it, and I'm also going to split the location. Now I'm going to grab the old one, we're going to split it and split the location, and we're going to reconnect the scale, rotation, and the location z-axis. Now for the x-axis, I'm going to reset it back to the default value, which in this case is minus 100,000. So I'm going to type that in, minus 100,000. And for the y, I'm going to go ahead and go to the next y. So I'm going to do float plus float, and I'm going to add the tile size, which is 1500, like so. There we go. Compile and save this, hit play again. And as you can see, now we have a water all around us. I'm thinking that I might have ran out of loop. Looks like the loop ran out. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and in the spawner, I'm gonna make this a little bit more. So I'm gonna add another 9 over here. So obviously the more 9s you have, the longer it takes. So maybe you want to have multiple these spawners rather than just one. So as you can see, we have our water spawned, looking pretty interesting. As you can see, I would say it looks pretty all right for the distance. Obviously up close it doesn't look great, but in the distance, as you can see, it looks pretty darn good. So What we need to do now is we need to make sure that we hide this bad water. Well, it's I'm just calling it bad, but we got to make sure that we hide this bad water when we are near it. Now there is a property called minimal draw distance, but it doesn't really work for instant static meshes, well, instance components in general, because it's going to hide the entire component, and we don't want to do that. We simply want to hide some specific instances. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and open up my model, so the boring plane, this guy right here, and I'm going to add it another material slot. Now what I'm going to do is a small cheat, which is just simply hiding with LODs. I didn't find any other way how to do this. This seemed to work just fine. I made a material called this invis mat, open it up, hold 1, left click, it creates a constant 0, plug that into the opacity, select the material base node, and make its blend mode translucent. And now you have a invisible material. As you can see, or rather as you can't see, there is no material over there. That's good. So for our boring plane in the newly created material slot, let's go ahead and let's add this invisible material. Now we want to make some changes. We have only one LOD, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm actually going to collapse the build settings, but I'm going to scroll down till the LOD settings, and I'm going to provide this the minimum amount of 2 LODs and hit apply changes. So now I'm going to have 2 LODs. Also, I'm going to change this auto compute LOD distance to be false so that I can provide this distance myself. Now, with this being done, what we need to do is select the LOD 0, and I want to change its material to be the invisible material. So when we are close to it, it is going to be invisible. Now, once we are farther away from it, the LOD 1, that one is going to have the water texture on it. So I'm going to leave the screen size actually at this one, so 0.75. Hopefully this is going to be good. Now we're going to have a couple of issues because with this higher hull thingy, you will see, it deletes a big chunk. It doesn't necessarily want to delete exactly LOD by LOD. As you can see, it instantly deletes a big chunk. So now what we got to do is we got to go ahead and fill up that chunk with the good water that we have. And we got to make sure that we LOD it with some better, worser materials so that it doesn't take as many resources. As you can see, it generates back a massive chunk. And for some reason, I can't get it to generate just smaller chunks. It works in large chunks like so. If you have any clues how we can fix that, let me know, because that's going to be a big game changer when it comes to performance if we can spawn less good water. So FPS still good. Let's go ahead and let's spawn the good water. Now for that, it's pretty much the same thing. We add ourselves a hierarchy instant static mesh. I'm going to call this good water, and we're going to change the mesh into our SM water plane. And from here, pretty much the same thing. We go ahead, grab the good water. So we get the good water and we add instance at world space, and we plug in the start position. Then we're going to copy all of these nodes, and we're going to copy these to over here, right before the if branch check, right after we have added the bad water tile. So we're going to add the good water tile as well. There we go. Now with this one, we're going to have some issues because my FPS is about to drop. As you can see, my video card, my PC simply cannot handle it, and I hope the recording is actually good because the visual that I see on my screen is very, very terrible. But as you can see, the water is transparent and it's going to look pretty darn good. It's actually moving up and down as well, but it's very slow because, yeah, well, I'm having a lot of issues, a lot of lags. So that is because obviously I just spawned, what did I spawn? 1 million? No, 100,000? No, 100,000 instances of this good quality material that is using the most expensive material that it could find, which it uses by default. So we're going to change that. So first, let's change up so that it does not create this awesome looking water infinitely, but rather so that it just fills out those empty missing pieces. So what we could do is start experimenting with the cooling distance. So I'm going to start cooling at, let's say, like 500 or maybe 5,000 rather. And we're going to end cooling, like for now I'm going to do to 20,000, but I know that's not going to be enough. But start a little bit smaller, like 20,000 perhaps, so that you can see how far it actually does generate the water, because now you will see that there is amazing FPS again, and there is a difference. There is a huge chunk missing between the good and the bad water, as you can see. So we need to fill it up. From the testing that I done in the other project, it was 50,000. So that's going to be what I'm going to be using. As you can see now, it's way better. We can, there's still a little bit of it. There's still a little bit of it. So maybe let's go ahead, let's bump this even higher. So maybe like 60,000 instead. We're going to bump it up. Hopefully 60,000 is going to be enough for this one. For the other one, it was a little bit easier. Okay, so we got this. But now again, the FPS is no longer as great because we are generating a lot of these. It also has collision, but don't worry about that. That's easy fixable. But yeah, the water is really high quality, and well, I don't have the greatest FPS. So what we got to do is we got to go ahead and make sure that we LOD this thing. So let's select our SM water plane, and just like we just did, I think, oh, this one actually has LODs, so we can go ahead and we have this one, and then we have this one. Good. So what I want to do is change the material of it. So I'm going to add another material, and I'm actually going to change the default ocean to ocean cheaper, and the other one is going to be the cheaper 2. Actually, let's use the instances instead, and this way I'm going to have a little bit of a bigger FPS. Now for the LOD one, I'm going to select the other one, the cheaper 2, this one. So now if we try this again, just by setting up a basic LOD system, my FPS is pretty good again. Here we go. Now it's not the greatest, but well, the water is very massive. There's a lot of things going on in there, so don't be too surprised that the FPS is low, because there's a huge chunk of water. Now let's go ahead and let's experiment with this a little bit more. Obviously we can go ahead and improve the performance even more. Now with the good water, you can go ahead and set up even more LODs and add even more materials and maybe change those to have a bad color. One thing to keep in mind is if you have world offset, keep the world offset throughout all of those materials so that it's the same. Otherwise you will see some spots pointing out. You will see through the water. It's not going to look good. Also, obviously for the bad water, you can just go ahead and change that even to just a regular color. So whatever it has, grab its color. It should have it somewhere. We have a cube map. There we go. We have the color and opacity. Go ahead, grab that color, and just simply, it has a lerp. Just grab this, use that as a base color, and you should be good to go. Now the last couple of things that I want to touch before we end this this experimentish thingy of mine. As you can see, it doesn't have exactly the same waves as it had in that demo level, and that is because, well, we need to provide it some settings in the material. So we have the material instances. We need to basically modify both of these so that we keep the same LOD, not the LOD, but world position offset. Otherwise, we're gonna have those. We're gonna have the world sticking through the water, so it's not gonna look great. So to make your life easier, go ahead and bring one of those planes into the level. So I'm gonna bring one over here. Move it out a little bit, and as you can see, it's very boring. That's exactly how it looked. Just pretty standstilling water, doesn't really move much. Now inside of here, inside of these material instances, as you can see, there is a bunch of parameters that you can go ahead and experiment with. I strongly suggest you do, because there's a lot of things that we can change with this. We have the foam, so that's like this white piece over here. We can change its speed, how it moves, how it looks, how it shapes, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Actually it's the sea foam, so we have the shore foam, so that should be this one. And here we have the VPO, so world position offset, which actually controls the actual waves. So there's even more things that we can modify when it comes to waves. So this whole thing pretty much works with the waves, so I strongly suggest you experiment with these. But the three most important ones are the intensity. So we can bump this up to like 7, and as you can see, instantly we have more wavier sea, well, the ocean or whatever that is. Let's bump this maybe to like 5. Let's bring this down maybe to like 1, maybe 3, something like that. As you can see, now we have way more motion in the water. Now go ahead and change the same settings inside of the other material as well, because if you don't, and if we're gonna hit play, you're gonna see that in the where the LODs change, we can see through the water, because this one has one world offset, the other one has a different world offset, so they don't really work together that well, because this one has different properties. So go ahead, change the same one. So we had 5, 3 and 5, I believe. Yeah, 3, 5, 7. Good. So we can go ahead, save those, and now once we hit play again, you will see that now this thing is way better. Here we go. Obviously you can change the LOD distance so that the water color changes a little bit quicker, rather than, because we can see that it's a little bit different over there. But of course, it's totally up to you. It depends how you set up your LODs, how you set up your materials, because you can go ahead and experiment with these quite a bit. Now, as you can see, obviously it doesn't have any water mechanics or anything like that at this point. All it is just, I just simply was wondering, can I generate like a huge massive water myself without using the Unreal Engine 4, that water bodies thing? Because, well, it's not necessarily ideal. This isn't ideal also, but, well, I was just wondering how I can do this basically on my own without having to use any plugins. So that's going to be it for today's episode. Hope you found this useful. If you want me to keep on working on this water, maybe add like some swimming mechanics, some underwater post-process thingies or whatever, leave a comment down below with what you want me to create. And yeah, I'll probably, if there's going to be a lot of comments asking for something when it comes to water, then probably at some point I might do that. But yeah, for now, for today, that's going to be it. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.